right, we only have time for one more. This is the last one of the year. So, you ready to go deep? You ready?
Jesus, I don't even know what that means.
It's the underwear question again. How did you become the Jordan Peterson that we're all watching here tonight?
God, that's a weird question. That's an almost impossible question to answer without being like unbearably egotistical, even by daring to consider that a reasonable question. So, okay, so to the degree that that's a reasonable question, I'm going to rephrase it a little bit, because, you know, one of the things that has been characteristic of my career is that I've been an engaging lecturer, you know, and so I lectured at Harvard for about 6 years, and then I was at the University of Toronto for about 20, and I lectured at McGill a little bit before that. And the lectures were engaging, and I think the reason for that is because I never discussed anything in my lectures that I didn't believe to be important. And important, what I meant by important, it's sort of, I had a kind of a technical assessment of it. It's like, I really like abstract ideas, and I like philosophical ideas, and psychological ideas, scientific and theological. I like ideas, but I also like them to come to a point. You know, so when I was lecturing to my students, the rule always was, well, here's a fact, but here's why knowing that fact is going to make a material difference in your life. Like, you need, here's the way that this fact is a tool. You know, and so I was always trying to communicate with my audience and with myself in a way that ensured that what I was talking about was relevant and informed as it should be from a research, scientific and professional perspective, but was also of practical significance. And I could tell if that was happening because the students were engaged. And so I practiced diligently for decades, and then to stay away from notes to the degree that that was possible too, so that I could attend to the audience, so that I was only concentrating on material that was meaningfully engaging. And so I would say that that's morphed into this, you know, the process is partly a technological one, because first of all, I just have my students, you know, and the bigger classes were 200 people, and then I started using television a little bit in Ontario, and then YouTube, and then the audience size has grown. The message was working because of what I had practiced doing, and then the audience size has grown as a consequence of technological innovation and scaffolding. And so it's that process. And then the other part of it is, well, that's part of it. The other part of it is, like, I spent a lot of time writing. You know, the first book I wrote, which was Maps of Meaning, that took me, I wrote that book for 15 years, and I worked on it for 3 hours a day. And I worked on it come hell or high water, fundamentally. And it was kind of hard on my family because, well, you have to be mean to do something like that. And I really mean that. Like, you know, I had my office, and I had my job. I was a professor and also a clinical psychologist, and so I had a lot of professional responsibilities. And I would close myself into my office for this time, all the time, and I would chase my family out, you know, if they came in, and my cute little kids or my wife was a very reasonable person. It's like, what the hell are you doing in here? I'm writing. You cannot come in here and bother me. And the reason, and I was harsh about it, and the reason for that was, like, maybe I was thinking about something that took 45 minutes to think through. You know, and I had all that in my head, and then someone would interrupt me, and often maybe because they wanted to see me or they had a perfectly reasonable request, and, you know, then that would all disappear. And I couldn't have that and do the writing, and so I was like a junkyard dog. You know, I had barbed wire around my office, and if you came in, I barked. And, but the advantage to that was that I spent those 15,000 hours, something like that, really thinking things through. And when I wrote that first book, I rewrote every sentence of it at least, I think, 50 times. And usually what that meant is I'd write the sentence, and then I'd write like 10 variants of it. And then I'd pick the best variant, and then I'd do that repeatedly over the 15-year period. And I learned to structure arguments in a very coherent way, and I learned a lot of things that I had at hand, you know, that I can draw on when I lecture, for example, as a consequence of all that reading and all that writing. And so I think it's the combination of those two things. It's the reading and the writing that gave me a knowledge base that I can draw on, and then there's the continual practice at lecturing, and so that seems to be what's produced whatever it is that drew you to whatever it is that we're doing tonight, which is a serious discussion about, I would say, about serious matters. So that's...
That's it for 2018.
Hey, I want to do one more thing. John, are you back there? Would you come out? Oh, come on, John. I would like to introduce you to John O'Connell. John is my tour manager, and he has been unbelievably helpful to me for the last...
Well, as long as we're getting all emotional here, I mean, I've said it to you privately, so I may as well say it in front of these couple thousand people. I am a better person than I was before we started this thing. So I know what it's like for these guys to be here. Truly, it's been an honor and a thrill. I love you, man.